We have in our midst today representatives of different companies that are our stakeholders. We have representatives of 4D Technologies Limited. Are they here with us? Yes. Okay. You can stand up for recognition, please. Thank you. You're welcome. We also have representatives of C7 Technologies Limited. Are they here? Okay, they are on their way. They'll soon be with us. So 4D Technologies and C7 Technologies are our ECC center managers. We also have in our midst today Mid Networks Limited. I think they are also on their way. They are our consultant for broadband implementation. We also have the security liaison officers. They are both our internal and external stakeholders. Can you stand up for recognition, please? Thank you. We also have our colleagues, our dear colleagues from CPS department. I think we have one representative in our list. Mr. Emeka Mojo. Okay, so you are welcome. We appreciate your presence here today. The theme for the retreat is special duties, team building, and strategies for the future. We hope that we are going to have an intellectual engagement and socially interactive event. So we urge you to sit back, relax, and enjoy our program. Thank you. So without further ado, it is my honor to invite the Director of Special Duties to give his opening remarks. Director of Special Duties is Engineer O.Y. Asaju.
About how many years ago? I would say since 2007. And I've been very much associated with the emergency communication since then. I recall having a visit to see the Inspector General of Police when he said to me that he would like to introduce me to an organization that's already been in charge with trying to get the emergency communication in the country going. So that was how I wandered into the NCC's EC project. You've limited me to 30 minutes, so I'm going to try my very best to contain quite a bit that I really have within the 30 minutes. The long journey so far, I would have been able to trace most of it to you, but we'll do the very best that we can within the limited time. My subject is a role, ensuring efficiency and the role and engagement of the stakeholders. You can flip it. I forgot that I have a power. No kidding. About how many years ago? I would say since 2007. And I've been very much associated with the emergency communication since then. I recall having a visit to see the Inspector General of Police when he said to me that he would like to introduce me to an organization that's already been in charge with trying to get the emergency communication in the country going. So that was how I wandered into the NCC's EC project. You've limited me to 30 minutes, so I'm going to try my very best to contain quite a bit that I really have within the 30 minutes. The long journey so far, I would have been able to trace most of it to you, but we'll do the very best that we can within the limited time. My subject is a role, ensuring efficiency and the role and engagement of the stakeholders. You can flip it. I forgot that I have a power. No kidding. Yes. When you say, what is NCC? What is ECC, sorry. I think I would like to use this analogy. Sometimes most of us do not really know or appreciate what we have. I akin it to eating a pudding. They said the taste of the pudding is in the eating. What happens in the process? Many times you can take almost any object and give it to one group of people. They will appreciate it tremendously. And then you give the same thing to somebody else. What am I saying? There's a quick story about this. There was a psychologist. He was trying to make a point about a set of twins. This set of twins, one loves everybody and everything, and the other hates everybody and everything. So the parents were so concerned that they took this set of twins to the psychologist. They said, we are really at loss. We need to know exactly what is wrong. How can we help? Especially the one who hates everybody and everything. You know what happened? The psychologist said, look, I have a test for twins like this. So in one room, they packed it with all kinds of toys. All imaginable toys, the train, the ball, everything. In the other room, there was a big pile of horse manure on the floor. What did the psychologist do? He put the kid that hates everybody and everything in the room with the toys. And then the other kid that loves everybody and everything, he put him in the other room with the horse manure. And he said, okay, let's leave these two kids here. And in an hour's time, let's come back and see exactly what's transpired. Very interesting. By the time the psychologist walked in with the parents, the one kid who hates everybody and everything was in the room with all the best toys in the world. They said, hey, what's going on? We've been gone for about an hour. You have not touched the train. He said he's afraid that the thing will go around and hurt his foot. Then he said, okay, how about the ball? You see, all kids love to kick ball. He said, he's afraid he's going to slip and break his leg. How about, it was a how about. The psychologist said, look, we're in trouble here. Let's go to the other room and see what is going on with the other kid with the pile of horse manure. No sooner did they open the door that they saw this kid bent over this pile of horse manure. He was throwing it in the roof, throwing it to the left and the right, all over himself and the door. The doctor said, wait a minute, what's going on, son? You know what he said? He said, in this pile of horse manure, there's got to be a toy here somewhere. You see the difference in what I'm trying to analyze here. You have the ECC, and it's almost impossible for you to begin to appreciate you being the custodian of this great, laudable project until maybe somebody else who probably has other ideas will do something different with it. What I'm saying is that this is the face of NCC. There is no other project that you, as NCC, will run that has the impact that ECC will have. You can go to any of the states that we've been working with. Whenever you say NCC, oh, great, there's so much great things. When are you guys going to start working? When do we start receiving calls? And what I'm trying to say is this. you will begin to understand, but at the end of my presentation, why the ECC project is so critical to the image of the organization. And at this time in the history of the country, where we have security challenges, banditry, insurgencies, kidnapping, etc., everything needs to be seamlessly working greatly together. Is it still working? Oh. Okay, the historical background. In 2006, there was a committee, a ministerial committee, set up to look at how to bring about the emergency communication centers of the emergency communication system in Nigeria. And what happened? The declaration made it very clear that different organizations will have input insofar as the roles they're supposed to play in the making of the ECC. However, in looking very closely, someone has to be the custodian. Somebody has to midwife it. Someone has to be responsible for this thing to come alive. Who's that someone? Is the gentleman called NCC. And when you look very closely, I don't think any other organization in the country could have had the ability to be able to bring it to literally where it is. We will talk about some of your challenges. I'm happy that this is a departmental thing, and if Mr. Director permits me, I will just tell you like it is. I shoot straight from the hip. We'll tell you exactly what went wrong, because I've been associated with this project since 2007.
Say the way it is. Say it the way it is. In the manner that we need to learn some lessons from it to improve the efficiency of operations.
So, no diplomacy per se.
No diplomacy.
Thank you. Okay, we say, what is its significance to our lives? Again, you know, sometimes when I talk publicly, I like to use all manners of experience to drive home the point. I can tell you why there is that passion. The Canadian experience, why did I say the Canadian experience? Several years ago, that's like 2004, I had the opportunity of visiting a cousin of mine in Toronto. Between the airport and where he lived, I encountered all kinds of beautiful trees and mosques and churches and all the other things leading up to where he lives. Fortunately, he lives on the 8th floor of a building, and I looked out through the 8th floor, saw a Kentucky Fried Chicken, which is called KFC here, across the road. And so anyway, so I was aware of my environment. 6 a.m. the next morning, my cousin is a medical doctor. He left for work. The next thing, what happened? I had this horrible pain. One of the most excruciating pain in my life. What happened? It was easy. I called him up. I said, look, I'm about to die. He laughed. He said, no, you're not about to die. What did you eat in the plane and this and that and that? He said, okay, you know what? I'm busy with some patients. I cannot get away. Call 911. Call 911. What did I do? Indeed, I called 911. During the process, some lady came up and said, please state your emergency 911. And I said, I'm about to die. He said, no, sir, you're not about to die. Tell us, what's your name first? I said, are you ready to save me? We carried on this conversation. What did you eat? What kind of, have you taken any water the night before? And this. She was just busy questioning me as to what is actually going on. What happened? And she now asked me, what part of the city are you? I said, look, I'm a guest here, I don't know. This whole interview took roughly between 2 to 3 minutes. At about the third minute, she asked me, she said, can you walk to your window? I said, yes. He said, look outside. I said, he said, there's an ambulance there waiting for you.
Oh.
That's efficiency. You know, that is something that personally happened to me. And you can now imagine what is going on with our citizens out there who do not have access to any of these things that we're talking about. And NCC comes up with the idea that we have an emergency center which is really going to be coming up and things of that nature. Believe me, you are their savior as it stands. I use that experience because in many cases now, we're dealing with the threat of, where we say, what is the significance of our lives? Terrorism and major public order incident, little proactive intelligence-led policing, part of why the ECC is critical. Again, you say lack of effective secure voice and data communication, which even if you're dying, who do you communicate with? I think the police just came out with something very recently where they said, you know, whenever you're in danger, you just dial that number. And I laughed because I know it will never work. How do you control it? Who's to say who's the nearest person or who's the nearest response agency or agent to where you are? Those things have to be clearly and properly manifested in the system for the thing to operate effectively. When we say inability to respond effectively to major incidents, it's one of the reasons why ECC came up. It's the insufficient technology infrastructure to support joint security operations. That is the need for the ECC. Ineffective command structures to manage current complex environment. Which environment can be more complex than Nigeria? I haven't seen it. You know, failure to effectively support communities and inability to mobilize police and other stakeholder resources effectively. If you look at all of this, you will see where and how it's pointing to the role of all the critical stakeholders. And we're going to point them out. Security and emergency challenges, like we talked about, banditry, insurgencies, accident, fire, road, robbery, attacks, etc. In NCC's wisdom, after the ECC centers were inaugurated, a few of them, they took the step of actually conducting a study in which we, because of the years that we've spent with you, luckily we got the job to do the study, which is now become the blueprint. And that's why we always laugh when they say, there's a meeting going on here, there's a meeting going on there, there's a meeting about how NCC is to exit the ECC. You wonder who's calling these meetings. All the resources to make ECC succeed is already with you, including studies in which you committed to making sure that you get the best to make sure this thing works. Now, the One Call Solutions is almost a 200-page document. It's there in the department. We have another copy, which is the handbook. It's just another watered-down version, but that is only about 21, 22 pages. But this, we were able to do it in conjunction with some of our partners from UK and the US. It's a very comprehensive study. There's only 2 copies. There's one at your department and one with me, because I know before we completed the study, there was a Chinese organization that wanted to lay their hands on it. This is specific to Nigeria, but we know how they are good at adapting. Let me tell you, before you go there, in our study, when we conducted the study, we visited more than 28 stakeholders, All of them are listed in there. You'll be able to see we'll be able to talk about each one of them. And you will not believe me if I told you this. Every time we showed up, I was talking to, I had a meeting with the chief of staff to the army. There was a big group. All his generals were there. They were saying, where have you guys been? We never knew this project was actually still alive. I had the same meeting with the Comptroller General of Immigration. The same thing with the Minister of Transport. The same thing with the budget and planning offices. You will not believe what I'm telling you. What we found was immeasurable. And that we thought by now that your department will in fact be playing to the hilt in ensuring that this thing comes alive. So I'm happy about this particular occasion to be able to tell you a little more about what we did involving the stakeholders. And give a thank you for for pointing out that because I'm not even sure you knew the depth of how it worked in the conduction of this study. Please, it was as a result of that we came up with a typical, what will a good command structure for Nigerian emergency communication, what would it look like? Play the video.
essence of this presentation is to see whether we can get more strategies to what we have on ground. I'm sure there are 1 or 2 strategies that we can add to what we have. So thank you very much for the beautiful presentation. So before we go to the next item on the list, I have a special question. The question is, there is something that nobody wants to ever get in this life. We don't want to have, we dread it to have it throughout our lives. Yet, when we do have it, we don't want to lose it. What is that? There's a prize for the person that gets the correct answer. You never want to have it throughout your life. Yet, when you have it, you don't want to lose it. We dread it.
How?
When you have it, you don't want to lose it at all. Going, yes.
Knowledge?
No.
Power.
Of course, we want to have knowledge.
And we want to have power. Want to have power. Power.
Debt. So many debt.
And when you now have it, you.
So that is after. Going, should I give you the answer?
Go ahead.
What's the price?
No, I don't want to reveal it. The price is unknown. I know you can do it. Going? Going? Eh? Do you know it? Go on.
I just said.
What case? Oh yes. Yes, no. Court case. You don't want to have court case, but you have, if you have it, you don't want to lose it. You make sure you win it.
It's never direct. That question is
It's
not.
okay. It's okay. It's a
By
parable.
the masters of the game, our dear colleagues from CPS and RM department, that is corporate planning, strategy, and risk management department, represented by the Emeka.
Come to the.
Thank you for your AT&T. Yes, before we close, I'll invite the director to say what of thanks because of the invited guests that we have with us. From there, we'll discuss for lunch. Tomorrow is another day, but it's just for us. It's an internal thing. We have more interesting and exciting things lined up for tomorrow. So tomorrow 9:30, we will converge to this place again. Thank you very much.
Where provisions can be collected and disseminated. So, call to action on NCC mandate. So, ECC designed to receive calls from members of the public via the universal 112 code in Nigeria. ECC is 112 number is a short code assigned to emergency calls in Nigeria, just as like 911 in the United States. Emergency situations are attended to usually by the response agencies, in this case, police, fire service, federal road safety, or Nigerian security. So typically, this is just a diagrammatic, this is just a representation. You have a call, you have dispatcher, and you have response. So we're trying to provide a diagrammatic representation of what normally goes on. So you see an emergency, you see the call agents and dispatcher in one building. In this case, we have 4D associates managing. And then you have the emergency situation caller from the city or town who calls the ECC, and ECC in turn passes the information to the appropriate response agencies on the field. So this is a diagrammatic representation of the process itself. So we look at the agenda. The agenda will just be introduction, some of the existing challenges, why short code 112 is important, why should we have an awareness, the awareness strategies. So this is a typical ECC building. For those who have not been at the site, this is common building replicated across the country. This is one of our operations in Kaduna. For the first presenter, I spoke about replacing the points, the existing one.
That's international affairs, so it's good to have this kind of presentations. So, any question, interaction time in fact? Any comments, any questions?
Questions asking the corner.
Yes, this is the time. Now
This is the time. Yes, we are here. Let's go to the scene. These people said. Said. Not me, it's my neighbor.
Okay, I have
Question time. Forever, if you don't ask them, forever
Hold your
peace.
I do have one more.
Yes, okay.
Yes. This membership of study groups that you talked about, how do you ensure, you know that of recent we have been experiencing like so many deployments within the commission, and we know that people are moved from one department to the other. So I don't know what process you have in place to ensure that at any point in time, the membership is relevant to that study group. If there is one, how do you identify as soon as a person is changed to another group? How do you make those changes, and how do you enforce
Okay.
those changes?
I will try to answer that question. Should I call you to answer that question? Okay. Okay. Now, well, of course, yes, we are not tied to one department. Your letter of employment says you can be moved from time to time. We pay dues. We pay dues to belong to those organizations, and because we pay dues to belong to those organizations, we leverage on that relationship to get benefits from them. Because if you're not a member, there's some benefits that will not accrue to you. So when you pay, you get some benefits. We liaise with international telecommunications institutions that are assessed on regulatory matters, and we ensure our position is stable. We do that. We say we are world class, but I guess by virtue of the fact that as a regulator in Africa, we are recognized, and that's why most times in very international forums, ATU, ITU, CTO, they call us to come and be part of it, to engage us. And now we have a professor. So quite often we get requests, we want the professor to speak. And that's because of the fact that we have the substance. We are in. So we ensure that relationship continues and we sustain that engagement. Now, how do we go about our activities? These international organizations have like ITU, ATU, CTO, they have their calendar of activities for the year. So what we do, we look at those calendars and say, okay, what are the relevant things that we need to key into? And we don't do that in isolation. We do that with the necessary departments, spectrum, new media, technical standards, or all of those departments. To say, you know what, look at this calendar, tell us which are the important ones that we need to key into as a regulator and as a country. You know, of course, we have our broadband plan, we have our objective as a nation and as an organization. We need to know that. So we work with those departments to ensure that we get their inputs. And when we do that, we now come up with a calendar of the events that are important to us. And we process ourselves effectively. It's important that we engage with the international community as well as engage with other regulators. And of course, I guess that's what informed the International Affairs Unit. Our role is basically to facilitate that relationship, that engagement, that collaboration with the international community. And of course, part of our responsibilities include, just like I said, liaison with the Commission and other telecom regulators and organizations. And we do that by having a strong relationship with them, with those relevant organizations. And of course, we help to improve and facilitate participation at international fora, which you all know about, as well as compile reports on deliberation and advice.
So, we have breakfast, so that is why we want you to stay back and at least dine with us. Yes, breakfast is served, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to dine in the same venue we did yesterday. We had planned to have a group photograph. However, Monday is nowhere to be found. So I think since we are NCC, we can make do with the small gadgets we have in our hands. Elizabeth is you and head of the department and the director. Please, we invite you to come have a shot here before we move to breakfast. Thank you. Okay. Our department forward. Don't forget our special lunch. Our bonding time comes up by 1:30. Take off place front of the reception. 1:30 we take off. So please at once by 1:20 we should be in the bus.
117.
Okay, 1:17.
It's 117 now.
Oh, is that so? So just hurry up. Thank you very much. And God bless. Everything that has a beginning has an end. We have come to the end of this program. Ideally, we are supposed to give the communique here, but because of time constraints, I think we are going to take our time and come up with a comprehensive communique. So, on behalf of every staff here, I would like to thank all of us and say well done to everybody for making this retreat a success. I hope that God will spare our life to see another one next year. And I believe that it is going to be better and bigger than this. We have so many takeaways from this retreat that I know that it's going to be useful to us going forward. I implore us to